Greetings and welcome to this week's episode of the Pixel Crashers Podcast, a podcast where we discuss our thoughts on gaming news. I am Angelus de Mortiel, together with Kev the Gamer.
Hey, what up?
MajorStupidity.
What's up, everyone?
And DeathShroud09.
I made it.
Finally.
Peasantry.
So this week, we'll go ahead and, as we usually, start off with some of the games we've been playing. As I figured out, Kev doesn't talk about anything important, so we'll go ahead and skip him and move on to Joe. Joe, what have you been playing this week?
Warframe and Metal Gear Solid 5. Oh, I did also start playing again Plague Inc., which, was a mobile game that turned into like an early access PC release, but I mainly played on my Kindle. It's pretty fun. I get to create my own virus that I named Necromancy. That went and wiped out the Earth.
It's great to, on Plague Inc., it's great to name it stuff like, I named the viruses like Humanity. Or, name it stuff that's probably politically
Mine was a
incorrect.
Bacteria. So Bacteria named Necromancy wiped out the world.
Your mother-in-law.
So, Travis, what have you been playing this week?
Well, I think you guys know what I've been playing. I've been playing Terraria a lot more. The 1.3 update is amazing.
What's this Terraria game? I've never heard of it before.
I'm a bit late.
It's Peasant Simulator, basically.
I'm a bit late to the party for the patch, but it's fun all the same. I want to get a partner in it though, because it's rather difficult. I've also been playing Kingdoms of Amalur. If you guys are familiar
classic.
with it.
I never got around to finishing that.
No, I didn't.
Mechanically, it was interesting. It's just the story was just generic.
It was bad.
It was generic as hell.
It was just so generic.
But I got it for $5 on
gameplay was
Origin,
interesting,
like
though.
a year ago.
I'd like to discuss that with you guys further at the end of the streams, but that's what I've been playing. So.
Well, if you have something to discuss about the story, you can discuss that now. That's
No, it's nothing about the story, just about the fate of the IP itself, and talk about a little bit about 38 Studios and all that good stuff.
Oh, go for
That's
it.
probably evergreen for another week, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, okay. We'll save it for another stream then. So yes, I'm just kidding, Kev. What have you been playing this week?
Oh, what I've been playing. I've been playing Taken King, enjoying that.
Yeah.
What? Sorry.
Having a blast with that shit, man. I'm hooked. I'm hooked. Destiny Year 2, they got it right. So I'm playing that. I started playing the Nathan Drake collection. What else have I been playing? I played Star Wars Battlefront a little bit.
I was gonna say, yeah. Harping on me.
Well, I tried all three versions. I wanted to see, what everybody was actually saying about the Xbox One version, and I kind of agree. Like, it's a blurry. The Xbox One version hurt my eyes a little bit. It was
we'll get to that one.
That hurt my eyes. That's what I'm gonna say about that. And then I played. I went back to Assassin's Creed Unity, and it's amazing now. It's so fucking amazing a year later, and it's sad that it's going to be remembered as a shit port. And then Splinter Cell Blacklist.
Yeah, I saw you play Blacklist. I was like, huh, it's been a while since I've seen it anywhere.
I never played the Splinter Cell series. I wasn't into stealth games. So when it came up on the bundle, I grabbed them, and I'm just starting to get into them. I really, really like this game, and I've never liked stealth games.
Yeah, I understand.
Stealth games are awesome.
I can never get into them.
They're different.
Yeah,
this time around, I'm actually enjoying it.
Well, as far as this week, I've been spending a lot. Like, obviously, I play Warframe because, well, I'm doing my whole series of Warframe guides for October. But aside from that, as the gameplay on the stream is showing, I played this excellent fan-created mod for Medieval 2 Total War called Elder Scrolls Total War. And it's so, like, aside from there's a few little bugs here and there, some placement text that wasn't filled in, and a few syntax errors in the translation because the mod creators are Russian, from what I can tell. But aside from that, like, the lore is really good. They actually got like a lot of the city placements spot on. Like, I invaded this random castle thinking it was Khajiit rebels because that's what it told me. But when I actually got to the battle map, I was fighting the Akaviri. I was like, oh, okay, that's... And they have
Now,
like...
this is RTS. This is RTS, right?
Yeah, it's...
I think I saw you playing it on Steam. This was in the Total War bundle.
No,
From Humble
it's
Bundle?
medieval. Medieval 2 Total War. It's a fan mod based off of that game. So essentially, you have to have Medieval 2 Total War, and then you install this as a mod, and it works off of the Kingdoms DLC. So actually, I think you have to have the Gold Edition of the game, like I did. I've had it for years. I got it when it first came out, and I haven't played Medieval 2 in a long time.
So basically, people are using mods to create new games and giving them out for free.
Yeah.
Quality games.
Well, the thing
Crazy.
is that this is all like giving them out for free. Yes, maybe asking for donations, but it's obviously based off of Bethesda's IP, so you can't really call it your game.
Oh, yes, you can.
Let's be honest, though. The Russians have been at this for a long time. I don't know if you guys saw, like, Halo Online, but...
I'm sure it's a hackfest. I'm afraid.
No, some, like, Russian dev, like, modders managed to almost completely port Halo 3 over to PC.
Yeah. They do a lot of stuff like that. And like I said, this is a very unique, like, first of all, they used information from every Elder Scrolls game. They used music from every Elder Scrolls game. Like, I heard, like, one of the songs popped up playing for some specific event or something that was happening. I was like, that sounds so familiar. Where if I heard that, my brother-in-law was like, I think that's Redguard, the theme song for Redguard. And I looked up, I was like, no, I don't think it's quite Redguard because that one sounds a little bit different. And I'm like, Daggerfall. They had the theme song for Elder Scrolls 2 Daggerfall in here. And then they have, like, the Skyrim and Morrowind and Elder Scrolls
All the games
Online.
everybody played. The
But yeah,
games the casuals played.
Huh?
Mostly the games that the casuals played, basically.
No, because, like, Elder Scrolls 2, no casual played that game. That was...
No. I was talking about because all the casuals played Skyrim and said, "Oh, it's my favorite series now."
Well, yeah, but the thing is that there's a lot... Like, this is kind of for the hardcore. They even went to the extent of, like, Elder Scrolls has this very kind of familiar thing of on the loading screens. They'll have, like, a famous quote from, like, general or a politician from, like, that time period, of wherever. Like, if it's Rome, they'll have, like, some Roman philosopher or Julius Caesar or something like that make a quote. This one, they have all, like, they replaced all the quotes with quotes from, like, Elder Scrolls books or things from Elder Scrolls games. And I was like, okay, that's pretty awesome. That was well done. It's, like I said, it's a really well thought out game. There's a little hiccups here and there on it, so it's not perfect. It's obviously fan made. My major complaint is the heavier Imperial soldiers from Oblivion. Their normal shields that are supposed to be kind of full size shields look like the size of bucklers, tiny. That looked weird to me. Aside from that,
we've gotten back on Elder Scrolls.
Well,
we're gonna keep that train going.
Well, yeah, but this one was very, very much deliberate, and I think it was a necessary.
Elder Scrolls has great lore. Like,
yeah, it's got
a great background lore.
I'm just having fun with that. We talk about Elder Scrolls every week.
I don't know, guys. Like, Valestia Argonian Maid. It's just such a great story.
They actually have a quote from that on the loading screens. Because reasons.
Travis, are you into it? Are you into it for all that plot?
Oh, yeah, the plot. Yeah.
So much plot.
There's so much plot. It's ridden with plot. And when you like
plot, so I gave you more plot, bro. To add more
exactly.
plot to the plot you already got.
Exactly. But let's go ahead and move on to our first story of the night here. So, the first story of the night was kind of this interview GameSpot did with one of the developers of Halo 5 from 343 Studios, and where they kind of discussed the plans for, I guess, the not upfront cost of Halo 5. The first thing they confirmed was that there would be microtransactions, but they're trying to keep them most cosmetic and mostly fair stuff, not like any pay to win type stuff on there. It's mostly like, hey, you want a different skin for your Spartan or whatever. But the big thing that they talked about, and this kind of actually was like, finally, they got it. They're maybe making all of the map DLC free for multiplayer. And as Joe will, outrightly very much exclaim and shout to everybody that, map DLC sometimes is very divisive of the community because some people have the map pack, some don't. And this guy actually was spot on with that opinion. He actually said that.
But you said the map packs are going to be free, though, right?
Yes.
Maps will be free with Halo 5.
Yeah,
maps
no,
that's if they're free.
That he was saying that he was agreeing with you. He essentially said for Halo, I think he was talking about Halo 3 or Halo 4, where they had like, the season pass, then DLCs 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you had players that had any mix-up match of all of the above or none of the above and anywhere in between. So you had like, 7 different potential communities, and that was, he felt it was really bad for the game.
Man, I remember when Halo 2 had physical disc DLC maps. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
Yep.
That was.
I remember when you bought an expansion pack for Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, and you had to go to KB or Toys R Us or wherever you got your games from and get a physical piece of hardware and put that expansion chip in your console.
Yeah, they actually had the little slot on the front of the N64. You had to take the little plastic piece off to put it in there.
I was in middle school. I'm old.
Yeah, but so do you guys think this is the best route to go? Like supplant, like essentially having, from what I understand, cosmetic microtransactions and then free map DLC for the multiplayer, or do you think they should still charge for the DLC? What do you guys think they should do? And we'll start with you, Travis.
I don't think that they should be doing microtransactions at all in a game you already upfront pay for. I find that.
So you would prefer pay $80 for the game up front then?
No, I feel like shunting the costs onto the consumer is responsible, I guess.
I will say I usually would agree, but I will admit if it comes with like free DLC, like if they have just the base game and then there's microtransactions and there's no new content introduced, that's horrible. But if they're introducing new content and they're not actually charging for it, instead in lieu, going the route of microtransactions, I don't think it's as bad. Kind of like how Mass Effect 3 did.
But that's the thing, Major.
You have to pay for the DLC development costs some way.
Some people like me enjoy like aesthetically pleasing things, and unfortunately microtransactions, they tend to really put a strain on that if they go with just the regular, they just go the route of doing cosmetic stuff.
I know it's not perfect. I'm saying that I would rather have to be paying for cosmetics than paying for something that affects gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I
don't know.
If you're gonna go a microtransaction route, just go full free to play. I feel like trying to supplement a paid game with microtransactions is just gonna lead us down a very bad road in the future.
Oh yeah,
I usually that's what they're trying to do, though. I think what they're trying to do is supplement the DLC. They're saying, okay, we want to support this game beyond what we got at launch. But what we got at launch is paid for. That's what you're paying for. You're paying for the vanilla game. Now, how do we make money on that after content? And that's where the microtransactions come in. I think if you're going to do microtransactions in a $60 game, this is the way you do it. If you're gonna like either that or like, I don't have a problem with the season pass, but I think this might be the best way to go. Try it out. Let's see how it works. I don't want to go with the free to play model because I think the free to play model in AAA games won't work.
Yeah, mainly because I think too many, like, we look at something like Battlefield. It's like Battlefield 4 not only had the map packs and premium and everything, but on top of premium, it also had microtransactions to unlock stuff. And one thing I've realized about microtransactions is the moment they're introduced into a game, no matter how fair or reasonable they might be, every time they're introduced, they influence design and they change how the developers design the game, because in the end, even when they don't try to, they end up trying their best to kind of push you towards paying for microtransactions. And
I
it
disagree.
changes.
I disagree with that when we talk about some games. I think Battlefield, I'm
I don't
thinking
even think they do it on
Battlefield 4.
purpose. I'm saying it happens every time though. Like Battlefield 4,
It didn't
takes
take
like
anything away from Battlefield 4 because
it takes
everything was
like
already out.
it takes like 300 hours to unlock everything. That is completely ridiculous.
Right, but they did that before
No,
microtransactions.
they were
That's how
planning
Battlefield's been.
microtransactions from the beginning. They were
But Battlefield 3 had the same thing.
Yeah, Battlefield 3 did. And Battlefield 3, they planned the game with microtransactions in mind. The thing is,
like the
is
battle
that,
packs. When you look at the battle packs, you can't tell me they weren't thinking of microtransactions. Come on.
the thing is that let's first of all let's get a couple hard facts on the table here. First of all, Joe is absolutely correct. DLC, like if you have microtransactions, it is impossible not to have that affect the development in some fashion or another. If it's cosmetic DLC, you'll notice that you'll have a little bit less customization to your visual character to try to encourage you to get the better skin or
I doubt
whatever.
they even do it on purpose. Like,
yeah, no,
it's they do
it's
it
because they segment. The reason for that one is because they obviously segment off a team to do the visual design for the skins, which takes away from the stock team developing the skins, and it's just resource management. And then if you have like more in-depth microtransactions, a good example, you could do Warframe, you could do Mass Effect 3. You can't tell me that that the grind of those games was not partially affected or majorly affected by the fact that there was microtransactions to buy stuff in the game. They want to encourage people to buy those RNG packs or whatever.
Morty, you asked how am I going? Like, how are they going to subsidize this deal? The DLC that they're making. And my problem is
that was Kev that said
that. Oh, was that Kev?
Yeah, it was me.
Well, my problem with this is that these developers over the years have done not developers, but most developers and almost every single publisher has done next to nothing to earn my trust as a consumer.
Mm-hmm.
So,
oh yeah,
whenever I see them adding microtransactions into a game, even if they say that it's to subsidize a DLC, I see them simply trying to make me pay more for
that brings me
is
to
I
the
bet
second.
they found.
Well, let's.
But microtransactions are always optional too.
Well, no,
I think something we should
argument.
talk. Yeah, but
it's so easy to make it
it's a valid argument. It's a
Well,
valid argument. You don't have to pay if you don't want to.
Let's first dispel the second piece of info, or I guess clear up the second piece of information. And I brought this up before. 20 years ago, games cost $40. 15 years ago, they cost $50. 10 years ago, they cost $60. And so over that trend, they've increased that much amount of money, and have not increased since then. But development costs have gone up. What they realized and what the market told them, what the consumers, what the players told them, is that they don't want to pay high costs up front. They don't want to pay $80, which is what the price of games would be nowadays. They don't want to pay.
I feel like it's going to get to the point. I'm sorry, Morty.
Well, yeah, essentially, it's people don't want to pay $80 up front for just the base game. I'm not talking about special editions or anything like that. I'm talking just base game would be $80 based upon that market trend. And people don't want to pay that. People don't want to pay, hell, $60 is even twisting a lot of people's arms. So as a result, they had to get creative. They had to find a different way to actually sometimes break even or make a profit. They are a business, okay? That's the first thing. They're a business. They're designed to make profit. They want to sell their games. They want to make money. They want to grow and expand and do better content in the future. That's the way they do it.
Well, that is true.
Right,
that's certainly not an excuse, though, just because it's like, as a consumer...
What I'm going to put forward to you, Morty, is that yes, development costs have increased, and I believe that you are correct in that people don't want to pay that upfront cost. But I believe also that it's getting to the point where people are not wanting to pay that cost at all. I mean, wages
Well,
haven't exactly been going up with inflation
Well,
in these past few
and
years.
you
So
know,
it's like people aren't making as much money as they used to be.
so
So
yeah, go ahead,
I,
Kev.
they're less willing to give for that entertainment.
while I agree with the point you're making, especially about people not wanting to pay that upfront cost, we still have to find a way to supplement the fact that again, costs have gone up. So now we're making less and we're spending more, and this is why so many studios are going under because they can't balance
Well,
it out.
I will
This is
say,
actually why I'm a fan of the season pass.
I
Well,
will say that at the same time, though, like the reason they're going up is because AAA hasn't been like they let their production budgets run rampant, especially with the really big titles. It also encourages a strategy of less risk, more safe sequels, and yearly, or
that okay,
yearly
that
games.
one is there are certain franchises, and I say franchise specifically because those are the ones where you get the safe sequels. Like for example, Call of
Assassin's
Duty.
Call of Duty's a moneymaker.
Yeah,
Like
it's a
instead of
moneymaker.
making
It's
a
a
new game,
franchise. So therefore, that game, just that game, the franchise of Call of Duty, has its own shareholders. And when you have something like that, that means that you actually have shareholders that are like, you know what? I don't want you to go too far off the reservation with your next Call of Duty title. I want to make sure that we make our dividends, and that's
yeah.
where you get those safe sequels. And I agree. I think that's bullshit. I don't
My,
think that you
but
should
yeah,
have a franchise.
my
video
point
game.
is like there's so many other like smaller developers and such who can produce quality games that maybe aren't on the scale of AAA, but they're able to actually manage their budget, not have to charge as much, and it feels like
Well, that's you.
Yeah,
trying to
those are where you
push
get
the
more
cost
creative
on.
games.
No, that's the thing
Yeah,
is that you what you said is completely logical. They don't make games that are on the scale of AAA games. Therefore, it does have a smaller budget, and therefore they can charge less for. That is completely and utterly accurate. What I'm talking about is, and there is a market for those, mind you. They make their
very
money, they
large
make their
market
due. Yeah, there's a very large market for them.
because a
But
lot of
there's
people who are tired of paying the full prices,
it's not just
like
that.
that's
It's they're
The- the-
some people are tired of seeing the yearly iterative games. Some people are actually just wanting something different, wanting something new. They don't want just another first-person shooter, or they don't want just another open-world RPG. They want some variety. They want some different things. But the big thing is that for AAA development, which is a part of it. Yes, I don't believe that AAA development should be the only games ever made. But I still think that they do bring some very, very good titles in there still to this day that are still very good. And my
Yes.
point is that like if people don't want to pay up front, you have two choices. You have three choices, excuse me. You have three choices. Subscription model, microtransaction model, DLC model, or some combination of the three. Which, if you take a lot of MMOs nowadays, some of them go free to play. But say, for example, some of them will mix microtransactions and subscription. Some other games will mix microtransactions and DLC. They mix and match to try to find what best caters to their users. They tend to not put all their eggs in one basket because maybe the microtransactions don't make enough, but she still
that's
got
what I
some
was trying to
DLC
bring up.
sales.
Like
Yeah,
when there's people who don't want to pay the huge amounts, it's like instead of trying to find new ways to gouge them or new ways to cut out so you can make more and more money off them, simply restrain in the budget, start producing smaller scale games and telling people just flat out like, do you
But-
want to pay less for your games? Okay, they're going to be on a smaller scale.
Well,
Morty.
but that's total opposite of what the AAA industry
Yeah.
is. You can't stifle
Morty.
the AAA industry.
They go too far, though.
Hold on, let me finish. What I'm saying, the consumer doesn't understand that.
Yeah.
Like the average consumer isn't following how much these games cost.
Yeah.
All they know is I paid $60 for this game, and it's broken, or I'm tired of playing this same game all the time, so I'm not going to buy another one. So we have to satisfy those customers that still want Assassin's Creed every year, Call of Duty every year, but at the same time make a profit, understand we're gonna take losses because people are gonna get tired of Assassin's Creed. So we have to get new customers in,
The
It
and
feels like there's
then
ways they could
guys,
cut the budget.
worry
Though.
about the
Like
people that
how
you're gonna
much,
piss off.
like the money
the
they spend on marketing alone
yeah, I was
is
about. That's
insane.
exactly where I was gonna
Well,
go.
in some
Major,
Right,
cases,
yeah, I
is
think
that
some of these games don't
what it,
need these huge marketing budgets. I'm thinking Destiny didn't need this huge marketing budget when it first came out.
and
Assassin's Creed really doesn't need a huge marketing
That's what
budget.
I'm
Call
talking
of
about.
Duty
Like
really doesn't.
they don't have to scale down. They just have to be more. They have to manage their budgets better. Like there's other industries that spend huge amounts producing content, and they don't hemorrhage funds the way AAA industry does, especially
yeah,
things like Square Enix,
I
who
think
Oh, Square Enix is so
Major
fun.
is
like
on
they
Major is onto
hemorrhage money.
something.
Like
Major is onto
they
something like
they
big
pass it
there.
on to us. They
let-
expect us
let's
to make
let's
them
also
whole.
not generalize here because some of them do. Like you said, like
I
Square
know, not
Enix is horrible at
Yeah,
budgeting.
that's my worst thing. It's like there's many of them who hemorrhage money and who aren't responsible and who just like burn money making the game and then expect us to fix it for them. Like, hey, we wasted a bunch of money making the game,
And
so we're gonna charge you guys more.
that is an individual. And the thing is essentially what you have there is you have this kind of weird thing between publishers and developers. And developers will like good developers, the publisher will give them a budget, give them a deadline, and say, "This, you make your game here." Like the developer will pitch the game to the publisher. The publisher says, "Okay, we like this game. That's cool. Here's your budget that you suggested to us for it, and then here's your deadline for it. Have us this finished game at this time." And then good developers will say, go on about their merry way, get the game put together, and then essentially have the game put out and stay around the budget, usually under if they can. They try to stay under the budget. Then you have developers like Square Enix who are well, I can't remember what game it was that they had to go back and revise the budget like 3 times because they kept going over their budget.
Well, like Tomb Raider, which sold like what was it, 6 million copies, and they still counted it as a failure because it didn't recoup their
I
losses.
think that might have been the one that they.
It's just insane. It's like, how are you not successful after selling that many?
Yeah.
Random thought too. Do you think that's why we're seeing so much timed exclusivity and exclusive content deals? Is because again, since consumers don't want to pay more than with
Yes.
inflation,
It is.
so that's just another way to make more money.
You actually are, because that's essentially they don't necessarily. I don't think that per se the developers or publishers will approach like a console manufacturer to try to get it, but I think that they are open since they actually have not, since they have potential losses in budget. They are much more susceptible and open to those suggestions because they need the money somehow or another, right? Like how else are we going to recoup that money? Like I said, my main thing is that rather than bulk condemning microtransactions or DLC policies, instead of saying you should never have them, I want my game free. I think that like essentially where that leads is like free to play is nice. It fits a market edge. Like the indie titles, smaller budget games fits another edge of the market. Big budget AAA games fit another edge of the market. They're all separate entities in their own little circles. And I'm like, I'm good with that. But here's my thing is that I essentially think that instead of us as a whole saying microtransactions are evil, instead we should be more pushing them saying, hey, you need to do smart microtransactions. Like, I'm okay with cosmetic microtransactions, things like these. For the most part, Warframe seems to do pretty well with their microtransactions, but they also kind of shock on things. There are some specific things I don't agree with in their practices.
Well, Morty, I don't think anybody here is completely against microtransactions in the correct setting, but I think what we're trying to say is that in a setting that involves a AAA studio that is notorious for just hemorrhaging money on things like marketing budgets and just bad management of their of their studios.
But is that 343 Studios? Because that's
I
kind
will
of
343 has their own set of problems.
yeah.
With
They have
this
some
studio in
problems.
particular,
But
when they say they have the free maps and they're gonna have microtransactions, like it's like the Mass Effect 3 thing, where it's like if you're gonna have content and you're gonna release content and have some content be free, and then make up for that with microtransactions, I don't mind that as much because it's like you're not paying for the DLC. It costs money to
and it
produce
doesn't
quality
divide the
DLC.
it doesn't
You know
divide the
what I'm
Yeah,
what I'm afraid of is that it's not going to be quality enough
yeah,
content
and I'm afraid of
to
them doing both.
it's not I'm afraid it's not going to be substantial enough content to excuse going with a microtransaction route in a
It
paid
probably
game.
won't.
well.
I'll tell you right now, they'll make more
Do you have a
money
lot
off
of experience with Halo
probably.
games by chance?
I do, yes.
Yeah, so their maps tend to, normally they would sell their maps piecemeal, and to me, I always kind of got annoyed by that because
Yeah,
when I did
I
Halo 2
hate
stuff,
selling map
I
packs.
always hated because I obviously had to buy all of the maps when they came out because it like at the time I was doing MLG stuff with Halo 2, I had to train on the new maps, so as soon as they came out, I bought them. Now, I had income from MLG play to actually substantiate that, but I still felt that was it kind of annoyed me, especially the fact that you had to actually get the separate disc for those too. That was annoying as hell.
Yeah.
But still, thing is that the actual DLC maps have, historically, both for Bungie and then whenever 343 took over, they've been historically pretty decent. I haven't had too many complaints about their DLC maps. So when they're making those DLC maps free, that to me is a pretty substantial change of the norm. Because if you look at like the norm that Halo and Call of Duty and Battlefield set, all of the map packs have always been like a la carte. And that's kind of where I'm like, I feel like it's a fair transition as long as the microtransactions are done right, which is what they are saying they're trying to do. Yeah,
I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
but in any case, yeah, we've dwelled on this one for long enough. Let's go ahead and get moved on to another one that we're going to, of course, drill into the ground as well, and that's going to be Star Wars Battlefront. So
My eyes.
yes, Star Wars Battlefront obviously was playing over the weekend. Here, I think it ends actually tomorrow. And essentially, when it came out, obviously it's a beta. Let's get that out of the way first. It's not always perfect, but there have been some major graphical. So mostly on the consoles, but there was complaints of like of issues with with aliasing, draw distance pop in, artifacting, and that sort of thing. Not only that, there was also apparently the Xbox and PlayStation were at 720p and 900p resolution respectively, and it did not look pretty.
This is 2015.
Yeah,
and
so-
there's people still playing at
so-
720p.
Yeah,
Ugh.
so like as far as that goes, obviously, there's going to be glitches and errors in a beta. But graphics, that's something that's usually pretty well finished by the time you get to beta. Do you guys think this is a bad omen for the game? And we'll start with you, Kev, because you've played it on all of the platforms, correct?
I'm sorry. I had to turn my mic off, step away from. What was your question one more time?
I said like essentially, do you think the graphical issues with the Battlefront beta is a bad omen for the finished product? Because you obviously have played it on all platforms, correct?
Yeah, I played it on all three. I don't think it's a bad omen. I think the game is going to run. It's DICE. Like I think what a lot of people are taking in. They're taking it and using it to dish Salt to Xbox One. But if you actually think about DICE games this entire generation, this is what's been happening.
Mm-hmm.
Xbox One, 720p. Sometimes you're getting texture pop-ins. Not as much with Battlefield 4. I saw a little bit of it with Hardline. You're seeing quite a bit of it in Battlefront. But even with the PS4, I'm seeing like rampant frame rate drops. I heard about some frame rate drops from rubber banding in BF4 on PlayStation, but I didn't play it on PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, like these games feel like they're designed for the PC, and they're trying so hard to make it work on the consoles. And I feel like DICE is just like, to hell with the Xbox One. It's just going to be 720p this generation. That's how we're going to make our Xbox One games.
Yeah,
I think it's a little bit of lazy development on their part.
Well, I guess the big thing I would ask, and this kind of open up to everybody, is so the resolution's obviously it's pretty small on PC. Obviously, 720p.
Oh no, you see the difference on Xbox One and PlayStation 4.
I believe
it
because you're playing on a
different.
big ass TV when you're playing on console. So having that smaller resolution. Whereas if I'm have a computer monitor sitting up to my face, yes, I can tell the difference between 1080p, 4K, 720p. I can tell the difference, but is it going to really hurt my experience depending on the size of my monitor? Possibly not.
All I know is you're paying like $400 for a system, and in 2015 it's still playing 720p.
350.
It's funny,
or
900p.
350 on both consoles.
That's unacceptable.
But
Joe plays a 900p though.
Well, no, you think $400 when you consider buying the game. If you don't get a bundle, you're at least spending $400.
I'm saying, but the Star Wars PS4 bundle is 350.
Yeah, but I'm saying like if you don't get it. But point is
it 60 frames at 720p?
Yeah, they're both 60 frames.
Maybe.
I will say,
PlayStation
I wish
has a few frame rate drops. I think the Xbox does too. I didn't notice.
I wish there was an option to maybe increase the resolution slightly, but cap the frame rate lower at like 30 frames, just to give people the option to choose what they want to do.
The problem is I don't think console players want to have to deal with that. They just want it to work as is out the box.
I mean, it'd just be an option right in the menu.
Yeah, but I don't think they really want I don't think they want those choices. Or like, I'm not saying it like as a way to bash on the console community, but when you start talking to a lot of console players, you see like they really want it to be standardized.
I don't know. The ones I've talked to, they like options. I don't know.
Most of the ones I talked to don't. They want it to be standardized.
Well, when you think of essentially one of the things about consoles, one of the appeals of consoles is accessibility. You want to plug it in, turn it on, and there it is. Like having to go in and tweak stuff, that's not really something that's normally associated with consoles. That's usually something.
Exactly.
PC players, we're all used to, having to fiddle with settings to get it just right. Maybe, yes, you use your GeForce experience to automate the process, or your Catalyst, whatever.
But anyway, I was going to say that beyond that, though, I think all the graphical issues and engine problems we're seeing is just indicative of the general attitude of AAA right now, which is release now, patch later. Like, we'll just patch it post-release.
It's not released yet, so that might be a little jumping the gun on it.
Like, right, this is just a technical test.
And it's like,
this is just to make sure that the servers can handle the load. And actually, the PS4 version looks really good. It runs really good. The Xbox One
still
version,
running at 900p.
I'm gonna have to chime in.
But the 900p, it looks fine.
I'm gonna have to chime in.
What's that, Travis?
As I'm gonna have to chime in here on Kev and like just say my experience with DICE. Like the server load, the servers probably won't be able to take it. And
I'm not disagreeing with that, but I'm saying that's what they said this test.
You know what?
And then Morty saying that not jumping the gun. I've played previous DICE betas, and there have always been still latent issues.
Except for Battlefield 4's beta was more stable than the actual release.
It was.
That's what was hilarious.
It was like that.
The beta was more stable.
What I'm saying about not jumping the gun, what I'm referring to specifically is essentially like saying, hey, they released a buggy game. Not necessarily saying that they won't release this game buggy, but it's not released yet. So you can't say that they've released a buggy game. They have not released. All I'm saying is just make a factually accurate statement. They haven't released the game yet. Chances are high it will probably be
released a beta. Yeah, they've released a beta with bugs that are not intrinsic to beta. These type of bugs seem like core issues with the game that should not be a problem.
I haven't seen too many like real bad bugs, like mechanically. It's all been like visual stuff, and mostly, like I said, on Xbox with the texture pop-ins. I've seen some frame rate drops on the PS4. The PC version is amazing if you can get beyond, every time I play it, fair fight bans, they light up the feed. Like the hackers are real in this game. If you can get beyond those like little issues, which I'm hoping that they'll work out in all three, it's going to be a decent game.
And the one thing I will say, Travis, as well, is you're yes, Dice does have some issues with the server connections and whatnot, especially Battlefield. I've had some issues, but one thing I will say that I've always appreciated with the Battlefield series, and I can't remember if I heard they're doing this with Battlefront or not, but one of the things I will always praise them for is goddamn dedicated fucking servers and not peer-to-peer hosting bullshit.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that is the only reason I ever bought one of their Battlefield games, is because like that's what brought me over back from when I used to play Call of Duty was they have dedicated servers. I'm not gonna have this a
guy from Pakistan and you're over here in the U.S. trying to play on the same connection.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. What was it called? In certain games, and especially I think it happened in like Black Ops. They had like lag compensation, and that really messed with my game.
Modern Warfare 3 had that.
Yeah,
that was horrible.
It would really set back my reaction. It would feel like I reacted fast, but the game would not have the same input because I felt like everything was just running slow.
Yep.
I felt like everything I saw was slower.
Something interesting when we talk about dedicated servers too. Doesn't Destiny have dedicated servers and Call of Duty doesn't from the same publisher?
No. Okay, before you go on that thought, Destiny is not a first person a PvP first person shooter per se. It's an MMO. So an MMO infrastructure, yes, has dedicated servers.
MMO Lite.
You could argue that, but there's like two communities in the game, and that's the problem with that.
Well, no.
So yes, I agree. There is a community that plays PvE, but there's a good sized community that plays PvP.
That's irrelevant. If you look at Star Wars: The Old Republic, there's PvP in Star Wars: The Old Republic, and guess what? Dedicated servers for that. It's an MMO standard to have dedicated. For first-person shooter,
because the fact that you have the MMO element.
Yeah, that's just standard all around for MMOs to have dedicated servers. For PvP first-person shooters like Call of Duty that are just dedicated PvP, those ones no. Right now still the fucking standard is the whole peer-to-peer hosting.
The only one actually I could think of that still does that is Call of Duty.
I know, like, I mean, there's even been other games that, like Dragon Age Inquisition, had peer-to-peer hosting.
We're talking about PvP shooters now, aren't we?
Yeah, well, I'm talking, I should say, like, multiplayer games.
Multiplayer, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and if, like, you look at Warframe, Warframe has, like, its PvP or PvE elements, both are peer-to-peer hosting. With that one, I'm a bit more sympathetic, simply because, it's technically an indie title. It's an indie title. It's an independent title. They don't have a publisher. They're not a big AAA, doing AAA development. So they don't really have the money for a dedicated server system like, EA does for, Battlefield. But, so that one I'm a little bit more sympathetic on. Activision and Call of Duty have no sympathy for. That's one of the world's largest franchises. They make money hand over fist. They have plenty of money to have dedicated servers, and they don't do it because it's extra money. Why spend the extra money if you don't have to?
Right, exactly. It's like you see a game like GTA, and GTA Online even has dedicated servers. Though again, it's kind of like an MMO too.
Yeah,
it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of the way it is. But essentially, and I do agree with Travis, like this late in the game with Battlefront, though, I'm not going to think that they're going to improve the graphics a whole hell of a lot. They might smooth over a couple things, but...
I want them to fix those pop-ins and some of the aliasing. If they could do that, I'd be okay with the Xbox One version being 720p, because the power in these consoles they're not so much different to make every game that drastically different, and you see it with every other title. So why is it a big deal with dice games? And now it's a pattern. It's just dice, as opposed to every other developer, where it's usually okay 1080p and 900p.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that as far now, is this possible that this might be like the graphical issues, the graphical optimizations, I should say, is that potentially an inherent flaw with maybe the Frostbite engine? And
It
if
could
that
be.
is the case,
Yeah.
does that make you guys worried for Mass Effect Andromeda that's going to be
I will
made on
say,
Frostbite?
even Dragon Age Inquisition had some really wonky technical issues,
Yep, it did.
and it still
And
does.
people could say, like, tried to make the excuse that that was like their first time making that game with the Frostbite engine. I'm like, yeah, in Mass
Yeah,
Effect
but they
The
Andromeda,
made other
Frostbite
games
engine
with
has
it.
issues. Like, it's a great system aesthetically. Like, it has some really cool features and it looks good, but man, Frostbite engine seems to have some really wonky technical issues, especially on consoles.
But wasn't it? Yeah, but Dragon Age was 900p on Xbox One and 1080 on
I
PS4.
guess. I just know on
So I don't
PC
think
I've
it's an
had
issue with
issues.
the engine, because you
well,
would think this would be just as demanding as a Battlefront or Battlefield. They're big open world RPGs, or that is versus the big open world or big
well,
open
the thing
shooter.
is that the thing is that oftentimes your shooters tend to be more graphically demanding. Like if you look at like the kind of benchmark historically for demanding titles, Crisis has always been at the top. Like
Oh yeah,
people,
Crisis is incredibly demanding.
well, yeah, like people have always measured their graphical performance based off of Crisis, Crisis 2, Crisis, so on. So it's kind of that's a that's a shooter. That's not necessarily an open world RPG. Yeah, there's a few RPG elements. That's not really an RPG. So when you look at it, with a first person shooter, when you're looking at graphics, there tends to be a lot more particle effects and fine details that are going on, as opposed to an RPG tends to have like kind of, I guess, more generalized. It's not as detailed. I don't know how to describe that properly, but essentially you need to see that guy that's 100 meters away in very tiny details, as opposed to in RPGs you don't need to look at somebody 100 meters away. So Travis, what do you think? Do you think that Battlefront's going to be a bust?
Honestly, I don't think I can really have an opinion on it because I haven't actually played the beta myself, and the game itself,
It won't be a bust.
because of my pre. I don't think
I-
it'll be a bust,
I
but
shouldn't
I
say
don't think it'll be.
monetarily a bust. I mean, like, as in the actual game, technically.
I think it's going to be
Oh, yeah.
Battlefield with
I don't. Yeah,
Star
I think
Wars
I agree with.
elements.
Yeah,
Now I want to make sure I'm clear then. So only me and Morty have actually played it then. I know Joe, you said you didn't play it.
No, I watched gameplay of it.
I have no interest in it. So like it's like EA Dice. I saw some gameplay of it, and I've heard everything that they're doing with it. I just completely lost interest.
And
Yeah,
of course,
it doesn't feel like the Battlefield I've been waiting for.
Yeah,
Sorry.
just to clarify, both Joe and Travis, you guys are both kind of classic Battlefront fans, right?
Yes.
Eh.
Yeah, I've played Battlefront for a long
I
time.
was part of Battlefront 2 clan. That was actually, I think, my first clan I joined.
Gotcha. I just wanted to make sure that's cleared up for anybody watching. That way, they're like, "Oh, okay, these guys aren't just like Battlefront hate. They're actually people who have a vested interest in wanting to see that game." But
Oh,
yeah,
no, I still think
I
it's
mean, yeah, I
Battlefront
would
here.
love to see it be an amazing game, and if
Yeah.
it turns out to be awesome,
I don't
yeah,
want it to be a
I-
bad game. I just
Yeah.
look at it and I'm like,
You just are being cynical about it. You
feels
have your
like
doubts.
Battlefield. Like I looked at it.
It doesn't feel
If I
very much
didn't
like Battlefield to me.
When I was
I
watching
will
it, if I
say,
didn't see stormtroopers, I would have thought it was Battlefield 4 gameplay.
like,
But
honestly,
I don't think mechanically it feels like it at all. I think you have to actually play it to
there
kind
was
of get that feel.
definitely,
For
I
it.
could definitely feel a lot of it. The difference is, though, is that obviously there is the third person mode, which, as far as I can tell, is in every way superior to first person.
Mhm.
That's how it was in the originals. It felt like.
Yeah, but here's my thing: is that that it's definitely going to have some identity issues with Battlefield is concerned. when already, even though the game hasn't been released yet, you have people publishing articles about how Battlefront is not Battlefield skinned with Star Wars.
It's really not.
You know, well, the thing is, though, is that's telling on how much it actually might be. There is mechanically a lot of difference. I will say that. But there's I definitely get a lot of a Battlefield, especially with, like, say, the vehicle mechanics in there. You know, like with the Battlefront 2, you obviously had space battles. You could land your
That was the big disappointment, is just the lack of space. Like,
yeah, and that's a big thing of Star Wars. But the thing is that you know, the way they did vehicles in the game feels a lot more like Battlefield, or essentially it's all kind of within the terrain and map. And you can fly your jet, I mean, X-Wing, around the map or whatever. I'm waiting for all of the YouTube trick shot thing where the guy jumps out of his X-Wing, fires the rocket launcher at the TIE fighter, and lands back in his X-Wing again, you know, just like they did with Battlefield 3. But
so that poses a question, Morty, and I'm glad you brought that up, is that it seems like a lot of the AAA industry is afraid to have a lot of, like, not afraid, but something takes up the ability to have scope in their game. Like, it seems like for such high budgets, their games tend to lack a lot of content and a lot of scope.
Yeah.
Well, and here's and I agree with you in a certain respect in this instance specifically. Because there's a lot of games.
It feels like a lot of in the AAA industry, not just this game, but a lot of games.
Like I said, I can find examples to the converts. You know, Witcher 3 and Metal Gear Solid 5 are two examples of recent games that are exactly the opposite.
I will bring up Metal Gear Solid 5, and even though it seems like it has, you know, it has a ton of content, but I will bring up that even talking to veterans of the Metal Gear Solid series, many of them have said that they can see where stuff has been cut, and they found lots of different...
and that's the thing is that now that wasn't necessarily a budgeting issue.
Rushed.
That was, to me, honestly, that was the Kojima Fallout.
I don't know. That game was in development for so many years, and it still had stuff missing.
Yeah, and without spoilers on there, Chapter 2 kind of just fell off. I'm pretty certain... Well, the thing is, I don't think the Kojima Fallout just happened recently. I'm pretty certain that's been
perhaps.
That's probably stuff that's been going wrong for a while now. And yes, but the thing is, though, is that when you look at the actual breadth of the content, it's quite wide, and there's a lot of detail in that game. The Fox engine is brilliant. You know, there's a lot of well done development there, and I don't say it's perfect, but I'm saying that for the big budget it had, it did pretty.
What I'm trying to put forward, Morty, is not that there. I mean, I know there's exceptions, but I think that a much larger portion of AAA games lack the scope that their budget should give them.
Like I said, I can't say that because I don't have any data to prove or disprove that. That one is something that you could very easily actually find data on. I'm thinking it's very easy for one person to see examples of, like, say, Witcher 3 and say, it's the exception to the rule that they do badly with their budgets or they cut out content. And then there would be someone else like yourself that says, it's actually the exception when they do well with their budget. So I can't say that for certain. One thing I can say is that with Battlefront specifically, they have no single player to work on. You know, so that's not even in there. They don't have to worry about that. That's not necessarily a bad thing. They want to focus on multiplayer only. That's fine. There's a lot of games that are multiplayer only. My problem is if they're going to focus on that, it should be a goddamn good multiplayer. You know,
right? And I'm not sure about this multiplayer experience.
Yeah, that's where I'm kind of like, Call of Duty. A ton of, like, the majority of people that play the game for an extended period of time are all about the multiplayer, but they still have for all the faults that Call of Duty has that I don't like about it, I don't like about the community, that sort of thing, they put some damn good time and effort into their story mode, their single player story modes.
Oh man, Call of Duty 4 story mode is just like, it's memorable. I like it.
No, all of
so
them
much.
have been like done some way. Sometimes they feel like they're a bit of a rail shooter because they kind of lead you along a very strict path. They're obviously not open world games. I don't care. They're.
But that's not a problem because there's a story behind it. There's a narrative behind
exactly.
it.
They're
If it was an RPG, there'd be plenty of people defending that is a valid game. You know, a short, narrative-driven experience that isn't open world.
Yeah, and the thing
it
is
just happens
that
this is a first-person shooter.
There's nothing wrong with closed world RPGs, closed world shooters, whatever. Again, it's just another area of the market. One thing I don't want is that every game be open world. That's a bad idea. But let's not default get on that tangent too much. I guess my thing on there is that I feel like Battlefront seems that they may have. I don't know how big the budget was, but it doesn't seem like they've done too well on their budgeting so far.
They spent it all. They spent it all on graphics.
Yeah, and it's not even that good.
It's great on PC.
Well, no, I'm saying part of graphics is optimization, is making sure that it can work and scale. Like, and again, I hate to keep bringing up Warframe, but Warframe is
really that's what I was meaning. It scales really well on PC, but not on the consoles.
Yeah, like I said, I hate to bring up Warframe all the time, but that game is in a lot of ways a technical marvel. Like, they have it on 3 different platforms. It runs beautifully on all 3. Ton of content. I personally complain about there being a lack of a game narrative, but that's not the direction the developers want to go. They would have hired a writer a long time ago. But
writers can get expensive very fast.
Yeah,
right?
But the point is that they have optimized it very well. They have in their development studios, they have old crappy POS computers that they run the game on to try to optimize it for those games. So it can run on potatoes, it can run on your super high-end elite computer, it can run on the consoles, whatever. They specifically try to cover everything, and they do a good job of it. Battlefront, I could barely run it on my 650 Ti boost and my i3, and that's not necessarily the worst system setup out there. There's much lower graphical configurations out there. So, but let's
you have a bottleneck somewhere. You have a bottleneck somewhere too. We should add that too. Yeah, because possibly. I saw somebody with the FX 6300 and a 6050 Ti boost playing at 900p and getting like 45-50 frames a second.
Yeah,
so I think you have a bottleneck somewhere.
That's entirely possible, but that's still, the point of that is that regardless of my configuration, it's definitely not the worst out there. Definitely far from the best, but there's a lot of stuff lower than mine, and if mine's bottlenecking somewhere in my system, that means that a lot of other people would probably experience that too on PC. So that tells me it's not very well optimized. But in any case, let's go ahead and get moving on to our last story of the night here. So essentially, there's been recent talk and a confirmation of voice actors that are affiliated with the Screen Actors Guild, which is pretty much the union of all of the actors in Hollywood. They voted to strike in order to get better pay and pay/benefits, which are kind of commonplace in other venues of acting. And I guess
those entitled bastards.
Well, no, my point is this either highlighting a glaring problem in the video game industry, or is this a step to bringing all of the backward-thinking traditional Hollywood bullshit to the video game industry? So is it like
so which actors are like striking? Are you talking about voice actors?
Well, essentially, the Screen Actors Guild is a union that if you're a professional actor, you may do a couple of jobs on your lonesome or with your agent or whatever, but eventually you'll get an invitation to SAG, to Screen Actors Guild.
But I'm saying, like, who's So who's striking? Like
Voice
screen-
actors.
Okay, voice actors. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm assuming probably also mocap actors that, like, say Kevin
Yeah.
Spacey created his likeness in Call of Duty or what.
Mhm.
Essentially, the problems are they get paid pretty poorly, comparative, and they also tend to work long ass hours, and that's kind of what the two things they're focused on is better pay and like a little bit more standardized. Work for 2 hours, take a break, work for another 2 hours, because it doesn't sound like it, but voice acting can get pretty exhausting.
Of course.
Mhm.
Especially if you're making a very unnatural voice for what yours is, which a lot of them are very talented at that, but that strains the shit out of your voice. But I guess my question though here is this something that's a problem in the video game industry, or is this like essentially bringing in, like, making the joke about entitlement? Is this bringing in the entitled, prima donna attitude of actors in Hollywood to the gaming industry?
I was joking. They're not entitled. They're wanting to be treated fairly like every other actor. And
From what I've seen, at least and I can't say that I've had a ton of research on this, but I've seen a lot of interviews and a lot of they do a lot of Twitch streaming. People who do voice acting, and the majority of them seem quite down to earth.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're still entertainers, but they're not Hollywood level at all.
Well,
So I'd err on the side that they're just trying to get a better deal for themselves.
Well, even in Hollywood, not all actors are A-listers, and I've met and known a good handful of actors that are in Hollywood from the some of the low-level TV show, not even starring in a TV show, just the guest appearance on a TV show actors, to some of the big ones. I've gotten to sit and talk with Adam West before, and that was awesome. But totally down to earth and just a normal person. And that's a lot of actors. Yeah, I'm sure you have a few of them that are outside their brains, but that's rare. I guess, yeah. I guess it does stand to reason that it does seem like it's just them wanting fair treatment. I don't know what they mean by better pay. Are voice actors wanting to get paid $5 million per hour? Or how bad do they get paid? And that's something that I guess they don't really. What do you think, Kev?
I don't know. I think that, like you said, it's mostly about rights. It's mostly about, hey, can we get better hours, better treatment? What I'm understanding is they're kind of treating them like the artists, like as far as like the sketch artists or whatever. That's what I'm hearing. Like they're trying to find just whoever's in there, script writers, whoever in there that has a job that's not programming, and giving them kind of the same standards, and they're not the same job. And I've even heard people say, well, screw them because, they're not programming, so who cares? And I don't think that's a very fair attitude to have toward it either.
No, because if you get a professionally voice acted game, which pretty much if you do professional voice acting, chances are you're gonna have Jennifer Hale in it because she's like in every game.
And she's one of the people striking. She was one of the front faces.
Yep, she's one of the big outspoken people on this. But the thing is I've mentioned this before on kind of the hours on there, and I remember if it was Clark or which. There was some voice actor that I had mentioned something about long hours, and they were saying like one session. I can't remember who it was, so I won't say who it was that told me this. They went for a 16-hour voice recording session, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, no. I can't stand recording for an hour for doing my YouTube work. Granted, I'm not a professional voice actor, but that would be brutal.
Yeah, that would be.
That kind of time input is brutal. Almost no matter what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So.
Hell, my ass gets sore from playing games for like a couple hours.
Right.
First world problems, Major.
First world problems.
But I think this, that I don't know. I think that I'm hoping that it doesn't stem into like them striking turn into bringing more of the kind of some of the bad things that Hollywood actor culture has.
Well, you know
Where
what's going to
I've-
happen is they'll start to get paid better, and then the AAA industry is going to be like, "All right, customers, time for you to make up the difference."
Well, I think what I'm hoping
but
is
that's fair, isn't it? Like, where are they supposed to pass that cost on to?
yeah, but I think the
they
problem
could take it
is
from the
that
marketing budget.
the AAA development. Well,
We
yeah,
want
we
to
know
get
you don't
into
care
an
about
economic
graphics,
discussion
though.
here.
Well, I mean, you have to think about that too, because everybody has different criteria. Like Major doesn't care that much about graphics, versus me, graphics are kind of a big deal.
I care about graphics, but I care
Not to the
more
extent like
about
I do.
stability.
Right,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
I'd rather have a
Like
stable.
we talked about this with like The Witcher 3, where I said I played it at 30 frames per second because I cranked everything on. And I just said, okay, cap it at 30.
I thought it
I
looked
could
good
have cranked
enough
it
at
on and had it at
high.
the 40s, but I left it at the 30. Versus you said you cranked
I
stuff
just
down and played it at 60.
I can't stand 30 frames. And when I say crank down, most of my settings were at high. I had a couple on medium, but pretty much
Right,
everything was
but
on
but
high.
that's the argument I'm making.
Yeah.
I will sacrifice 60 frames if the graphics are that good,
Well,
Well,
in my opinion.
that's
As
indicative
opposed to you,
of a console
you
player
60
right there.
frames.
I know.
Well, no, to me
That's true.
it's like 30 isn't that bad. I care more about a
Ugh.
consistent frame rate than I do about a high one.
Yeah.
I like high frame rates.
Well,
I'm
of
not saying that
course.
high frame rates are bad, but I'm saying I want it consistent.
Yes,
If
I'd
it's
rather have it
consistent 30,
consistent,
I'm
but
not bothered.
I can get it to a consistent 60, and then there we go.
Yeah.
Right, but you're still missing my point that I don't care if it's a consistent 60 or consistent
Yes, I
30 as long as
All
it's
right,
consistent.
children. All right.
heard your peasantry.
We get this.
So-
that doesn't really have so much about that, but let's go ahead and get moved on to our evergreen topic. We kind of fizzled that graphical debate here. So our kind of evergreen topic today is we're going to talk about kind of the pre-order culture and day one experience.
Ooh.
So we're going to kind of talk about this need people feel to have to play games on day one, and kind of how publishers use that to
Fools be
drive pre-order
fools.
sales. And yes, Joe, you can go ahead and discuss your thoughts first.
It's just I hate pre-ordering. Like it's there's no reason to. It's you're being asked to put your trust and your money towards the company, which is not really giving you anything in return. They're basically saying, "Hey, come take the risk of us releasing a broken game or having the game come out and not be that good. Take that risk with really no benefit to you because you could easily buy the game day one without a problem anyway."
Yeah,
But if you're buying it on day one, you probably are going to buy it before you know about these technical
It's
issues
still,
anyway.
it's like, why risk it though? It's like, well, I'm against buying it day one anyway. But even if you're going to buy it day one, it's like, just buy it day one. Don't pre-order it. Like, wait until it comes
To me,
out and then see. Because if it comes out and it's broken on release, like Arkham Knight, all those people who pre-ordered Arkham Knight on Steam.
I pre-ordered it and got my refund. Thank you.
yeah,
But
Hey,
to me, it's one and the
still,
same.
it's like-
and that's the thing is now that refunds are standardized, doesn't that kind of reduce the risk a bit?
Some, but it's still something. where
depends
it's
on who
like,
you got
they
it
have
from.
to though.
Like I didn't get it on Steam. I got it from Green Man Gaming.
Mhm.
And Green Man Gaming doesn't always give the refunds. They gave it because this was an extreme circumstance.
Well, that's because
So there were guys like, if you got it from CD,
WB
I mean,
straight
because
up
it's
says
just-
it.
way, you're not
like-
getting a refund.
What benefit is there to pre-order now though, other than
And
like the
that
stupid little
ties
bullshit
into the other
things they
half
give
of
you?
it. Is that
That ties very much into this. To me, it's more or less. I might pre-order a game like if I'm really excited for it. Like I might pre-order Fallout, and when I pre-order, it's usually just a preload because I was going to get it day one anyway. Like I buy it the day before so I can play it at 9:00.
There's a slight argument for that, but still.
well,
yeah.
and it's for example, like Kev and I, we both had Dragon Age Inquisition pre-ordered, and literally, minute one that was that game opened up, we were on the multiplayer. And that's kind of tying into the first half of this is the kind of the pre-order culture, not necessarily with the game publishers, but the people. There are some people, as Kev has told me, that will rank on you if you don't have this game day one. Whatever game.
Well, not
happens.
necessarily. Yeah.
That's
Like
dumb.
it's a big deal. Buy it day one. Support the developers. And I don't think it's necessarily. I think it's kind of a dumb argument.
The developers
but
will be supported if I buy the game later. Like,
Yeah.
develop not if you buy it used.
Well, see, I don't.
Not if you pirate it first and then buy it eventually.
No, even
You
if
know,
you do
or
that, even if
or
you do
you
that,
buy it on a $5 Steam sale that 2 years after you beat it.
Yeah. Well, what do you
You
think,
still
Travis?
don't have to pre-order though. You could still
What do
buy.
I think about pre-orders?
Well, and
I don't know.
the pre-orders
Well,
and having a game day one, that kind of culture of you need to be on the game immediately. Or
Well, I mean, having a game day one and pre-ordering is a completely different
exactly.
beast.
That's why
They're
mention
they're
them both.
loosely related in certain circumstances, but as a principle, because of what pre-ordering, what pre-ordering stands for, I don't do it. And
Yeah.
I've been
and with a
burned
lot.
by too many pre-orders. I pre-ordered Brink, and
Oh God,
I mean,
you
with
pre-ordered.
pre-orders
I'm
too.
sorry.
Yeah, that was terrible. With pre-orders too, something to think about. Most of the time, you're going to get all the bonuses if you buy it day one anyway.
Well, the thing,
So
yeah.
that's why I say to me they're kind of one and the same.
Well, let's not.
For that reason.
I'm not even gonna get into some of the silly pre-order bonus stuff. I was essentially
the pre-order
where,
bonus.
that was
where-
last week. That
yeah,
was
where
last
I
week.
was orientating
Horse armor.
it was kind of this feeling, this need that people have to have a game day one, and how developers use that to push the because the pre-order sales are the thing. Obviously, there's literally zero legitimate need nowadays for developers to pre-order to push pre-order sales. They like it because it's guaranteed money in the bank.
This risk.
And what they do is they get us as consumers hyped up. Like I'm completely hyped on the Fallout hype train. That's what I'll probably pre-order it, and I'll probably pre-order it like Monday, Monday the 9th, or what does it come out the 10th or the 11th? It'll be out the day before.
Just
Like that's what I do.
I-
Day
wait
before,
for it to
just so I
come
can
out and then see if there's problems. If it comes out and it's broken, it's like just wait until
It's
they fix it.
Bethesda.
and buy
You know there's going to be bugs when it
There's
comes out.
going to be problems. There's going to be problems. But at the same time, like when it's a good game, you don't care. Like I enjoyed Fallout 3. It's broken to this day. I kind of don't care. I enjoyed the game. I'm not saying I like broken games, but I'm saying if it's a game that I'm hyped for and that I'm excited for, and if it's something that I kind of have a little bit of a track record or history with, then I kind of give some things a pass if I really like it, honestly.
I just feel like you might as well just buy the game day one. Like I don't see.
But I don't. But there's still one and the same, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like how do the two differentiate from each other?
The two differentiate because if everyone stopped pre-ordering and just bought the game day one, they
But
would stop
that's not.
pushing
But that's not
pre-order
the question
bonuses.
I'm asking you. But that's not the question I'm asking. I'm saying if I buy the game the day before it's supposed to come out or the day it comes out, how does that change?
That's like saying, you know what? That's like saying with the thing with ad block with like YouTubers. It's like saying, yeah, if everyone stopped using ad block, it would help the YouTubers. But if I just did it, it won't change anything. Just me.
No, I'm not talking about me. I'm saying if everybody just bought it, you can say everybody bought it the day before.
If everyone bought it,
everybody
and
bought it the day
pre-ordered,
of.
they would
You're
quit
still bumping
wasting
into
their
the same
time
problem.
creating pre-order content to give to retailers. Like
But
pre-order.
you're still not arguing the point. You're going way out of the scope of where I'm taking it. What I've said is okay. If everybody just bought it the day before it came out versus day one, the developers see no difference. They in revenue, like, okay,
They feel
we
more
didn't project
responsibility to have the game work on release if everyone waited until it actually came out.
Not necessarily. If stores should stop pre-ordering, everybody got it
That
day
would
one.
be. I would say
wouldn't have
they
the
would feel
protection.
more pressure to have the game working if there was much wider game review coverage, and nobody bought it until after they saw the reviews.
And there you go.
That would
And
put a
that's
lot
what
of
I'm
pressure
looking
on
for.
sales, because if everybody was like, well, let me wait for Angry Joe's review or for Total Biscuit to cover it, or whatever GameSpot.
See, if we want that to work
whatever.
out, we need to push publishers to quit putting their release date in like their embargoes, to quit having them go like the day before release. That like Dragon Age Inquisition was nice in that they didn't.
Well, people forgot about that. Like gaming news runs fast. By the time like you think about something that you heard 2 weeks ago, nobody's talking about it now.
Well, it's not just that. Like there's been some games that had some very strange embargoes. Like the big one that was off the top of my
Assassin's
head.
Creed Unity.
No. Was Shadows of Mordor. Like not only they had this really weird embargo where they said you couldn't say anything bad about the game if you review copy. Like it was going to be a bad game or something. It
Yeah,
wasn't.
and it was an amazing game.
Yeah.
We need to start pressuring the publishers to stop doing this, to stop having the embargo date be like on the day of release, like Assassin's Creed Unity. Make it so they have to do something like Dragon Age Inquisition, because EA did it where the
See, I think
embargo date
that's
was like a
excessive
week.
too. It was like 2-3 weeks.
It
That's
was 1 week.
excessive.
It was 1 week, and having them have the review out a week before release gives people time.
Yeah.
If they see a good review, it's like, there you go. You can go pre-order it because you saw that the game got good reviews.
Yeah.
And you see it's
But you have things like Metal Gear that was getting 10s. That yeah, it technically works, but then you saw how they were doing with
Well, and
microtransactions.
here's the one problem with reviews. This is something I know from discussing this with some of the reviewers out there, that they run into problems is that oftentimes when, like, the way it works and what Joe's talking about and how giving out review copies and embargoes a little earlier, is that oftentimes they'll give out the review copies like a couple days before, and they'll have to rush and play as much of the game.
That's another big problem.
Yeah,
Like,
that's another big bad one too.
And you can't, like, for example, Metal Gear Solid, I guarantee you it would have been like a 7 rated by most places if they got to play Chapter 2 before they had to review the game, but they didn't have that time.
I still think it would have had good ratings because the gameplay alone is good. Like, even with
like I said, it probably would have, maybe at 8.
It probably would have been 8 or 9 still for most of them.
Like, and the thing is that it unfortunately
it is a very solid stealth game. Like, for a stealth enthusiast, like Metal Gear Solid 5.
But my thing is that this whole, like, in some ways, like, the culture of gamers, seems to kind of, like, peer pressure us to have this game immediately, even if it's a single player game like Witcher, right? There's no multiplayer in that, but it's kind of this shared experience. Like, you're playing the same game that I am, and I'm like, oh man, did you see this part of the game? And you're like, oh yeah, that was awesome. There's this kind of, like, communal culture to have the game immediately, so that way you can share the experiences with other people. And then at the same time, you also have the publishers that kind of want this, like, tend to push this whole, I guess the best way to put it is poker. They hold their cards up to their chest until they have to lay the cards down on the table. And that's kind of the release date, is when they actually have to show the cards. That's kind of what it seems like, is that they don't want anybody to talk about the game until it's launched and until the pre-orders have been tallied up and people have no choice.
Right, and I think a lot of, and even that, like, developers, like, they want you to have this huge hype up until the game comes out, and then nobody's talking about it like 3 weeks later.
Well, and that's another problem entirely, is that the continuation situation. Honestly, we'll probably save that for another thing on how games, like, game culture is versus game development keeps people interested, and how short attention span is of gamers. We'll do that.
Right, like, nobody's playing Mortal Kombat anymore, for example. Mortal Kombat 10, I thought, was a good game.
And there's a lot.
I will bring up that another thing about it is, I see all these people who are willing to pre-order, and, like, part of me that tells people to stop pre-ordering, it's because they pre-order, like, Kev, you didn't do this, but for, like, something, for example, like Aliens Colonial Marines, that came out, and all the people who pre-ordered were so damn salty, and they were so upset. Now I was just sitting there like, why did you motherfuckers pre-order it? Why did you not wait for it to come out and then see what a train wreck it was? Like, you know what? It's all you. You took the risk. You did that shit knowing that this was a possibility.
And the thing is that in a certain degree, yes, that is kind of a consumer problem of.
I'll blame Gearbox too. Like, I'm not gonna.
But I was gonna say, but let's not take the blame off of Gearbox for the false advertisement of showing a completely different game.
I'm not blaming the consumer completely. I'm just saying that the people who did complain, who pre-ordered, I'm like, you know what? It's bad that they did this, guys. I acknowledge that, but you didn't have to pre-order that shit. Like,
that
you
much
just
I
had
can
some patience.
Right, but there's the patience aspect to it, but I still think you're gonna get fucked basically if you don't wait like a week to buy the game.
People just
and some people are like, I'm not waiting a week to play
that's
Fallout.
The thing. Like,
I'm excited for
who
Fallout.
don't want to wait. The people who don't want to wait, it's like, yes, when they release a bad game, I'm gonna blame them, and I'm gonna say, you know what, you released a bad game, fix it. But at the same time, all the people who pre-order it, I'm just going to be like, you know what? You took the risk of pre-ordering, knowing what it entailed.
And here,
don't complain too
here's
much.
a good example of the opposite. It's like, there's a lot of times where there's games. Now, some multiplayer games, unfortunately, I guess kind of going into the day one culture, the sooner you can get on some of those multiplayer games, the more time you get to experience it. And oftentimes in competitive PvP games, the sooner you can get on the game, the better edge you might. But I didn't pick up Dragon Age Origins. I didn't play that game at all until I was a couple months before
I played it.
Inquisition released. And guess what?
Yeah, didn't you get it when they gave it out?
Huh?
Didn't you play it when they gave it out?
No, it was on Steam Summer Sale. It was
that's right. Yeah, I remember.
Wait,
it was the Ultimate Edition with all the DLC. And I got it a few months before Inquisition launch, and you know what? I enjoyed the shit out of that game. And that's literally, it was, at that point, what, 4 years old, 5 years old, something like that?
Yeah, as much as I've heard the argument that it's games become irrelevant very quickly, at the same time, the practices and the decisions of the AAA industry kind of further push that. That kind of culture of games becoming irrelevant very quickly.
There are some games that have a shelf life.
Very quickly.
There's some games that don't.
Yeah.
You know what? I have not played... Yeah, go ahead, Travis.
Okay. I said, now that is something that I do have to give Bungie and Destiny, that they are saying they have a 10-year plan for this game. I don't agree with the fact that they released a game that I would personally call incomplete.
Their plan is to slowly complete the game over 10 years and charge you every step of the way.
Right.
But I think it's a step in the right direction to have long-term game plans such as that.
Oh, yeah.
I guess, what was I saying? Some games do have a shelf life, and that's perfectly fine. Other games, like I said, I haven't played The Witcher all the way through. I played a little bit off of someone else. But I haven't
You need to stop and go play it right now. Okay?
Yeah, right? The thing is that the reason why it hasn't been so urgent for me is I know that in a couple of years, I can pick up The Witcher 3, and you know what? It's going to be a fantastic experience.
The expansion pack, I think, has the first expansion pack already dropped?
Yeah, it dropped.
It's about to.
Yeah.
I think it's about to next week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm excited.
And I think that's another good case in point to make, because I hear a lot of people, especially console gamers, they don't get it. Why do you have a high-end PC? I was playing Half-Life 2, and they like to play old games. That's one of my favorite things about PC gaming, is that it's completely backward compatible.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
But the thing is, though, is that there are a lot of games that do have that long shelf life, that, especially because essentially they're single player. That's the big thing. Single player games especially. Although there are some multiplayer games like Payday 2. Good God, that game has an amazing shelf life on PC.
I think Halo has a really good shelf life too. If you can get into it, you can play Halo for a couple years and still enjoy it.
Warframe is
still in beta.
Yeah, it's still in development, so they're actively releasing new stuff. But a lot of your multiplayer titles, unfortunately, don't have that shelf life. And also,
I actually think Destiny. When we talk about Destiny, I actually think it does have a great shelf life. Oh, if you get into the PvP element.
Well, no, the thing is it's got a great shelf life because it's got a 10-year plan. That's the thing.
Well, I'm saying even the year one, because year one had a ton of new guns, ton of new powers unlocked once you beat the main campaign.
Yeah, that's true. But I think we're going to go ahead and kind of wind things up on here, and we'll do our last thoughts and whatnot, and then we'll go and sign off for the night here. So, Travis, why don't you go ahead and give us your final thoughts here? While you're playing Terraria in the background.
Look now, alright, I am not playing the game, I am farming. And that does not require actively pressing buttons.
Yep. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. This is a pretty heated week, I felt, especially during the first part, and I really enjoyed it.
Yep.
And I felt like we could probably have gone at this for another 2 hours easily.
No, we couldn't have. My wife would have been pissed.
Yeah.
Well, if we didn't have to contend with Kev's wife.
Yeah. I definitely agree there. Joe, what's your final thoughts?
Metal Gear Solid 5, I finally met Quiet, and she's complete fan service through and through. She has
And there's
freaking boob
nothing
jiggle
wrong
physics.
with that.
Those
There
jiggle
is
physics.
nothing wrong with
Yeah,
that.
there's
When you
nothing
first
wrong with that.
interact
Just
with her, you go into first person view in a third person game and immediately get like Snake picks her up, and you immediately just get to see her boobs jiggle every which way,
Yep.
and it's just like, ugh.
Yep.
It's like, damn it,
Painless.
Kojima, don't pretend somehow holier than thou.
Yep. What's your final thoughts, Kev?
Everybody knows me, Kev the Gamer. Make sure to check me out on my channel. If you're watching on my channel, otherwise check out Morty on his channel. Look up Mortiel on YouTube. He's the only one there. You ain't gonna find nobody else. Other than that, I'm still enjoying Destiny. Still enjoying that Uncharted Nathan Drake collection. And Star Wars Battlefront still hurt my eyes on the Xbox One. They need to fix that aliasing and the texture pop-ins. Praise Gaben.
And you guys all know me, of course, Angelus de Mortiel. If you're checking us out on Kev the Gamer's channel, you can check me out on here. It's Mortiel. That's the only person you'll find by that name, as Kev said on there. Something else I definitely recommend people check out is the that aftermarket mod for Medieval 2. If you have Medieval 2 and you like real-time strategy games and you like Elder Scrolls, check out the Elder Scrolls Total War. It's a great mod. I've had a lot of fun playing that. But otherwise, definitely also check out. I've got the Warframe Apocalypse series going on through October. You guys can check that out as well. And on that note, we'll go ahead and sign off.
Before you go,
Yeah.
I just found out something. There is another Mortiel on here. It is I think it's a musician, Almanda Mortiel. So you're not the only one. We have to stop promoting that.
All right, it's time to call my lawyer.
Also, don't forget, check out Nothing But Shots Wednesday nights. I keep forgetting to shout those guys out. Well, I should say those guys. I'm one of those guys. Wednesday nights. Check us out there too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because we have a lot of fun there. It is mostly console oriented, but we have a blast talking crap.
Absolutely. But on that note, we'll go ahead and sign off here for the night. And once again, we'll see you all next week on the Pixel Crashers podcast.
Praise Gibbon.